Now that extends up to Sullivan that we were timing it out in probably now less than 20 minutes, and that's in southwestern part of Franklin County. So it's really, that's I-44 right there. It's just right up 44. This started rotating over Raleigh, but the rotation kind of strengthened just on the east side of town. Will you guys keep an eye on chat with Springfield? That's who covers Phelps County, just in case we hear any reports of damage in Phelps County, especially being in a more populated area around Raleigh to St. James. We might get some reports, but at this point it is radar indicated. And that new tornado warning that covers that northwestern part of Crawford County. It actually also covers, by the way, southeastern, far southeastern Gasconade County. I suppose that's if the rotation kind of clips right there at the intersection of Gasconade, Crawford, and then this would be Franklin. And then southwestern Franklin County looks like it's a good bet to be in that trajectory as well. Golf ball size hail, they're saying. Now, they have it moving at 45 miles an hour. We're going to have to adjust speeds and times here. I think especially when you've got this rain coming out ahead of that rotation, that can actually kind of slow down because you're now ingesting some cooler air. Meteorologist Kent Earhart's here. What are you seeing?
If you zoom out and move to the south a little bit, this warning isn't for our viewing area, but southern Crawford County
good catch.
Is on the tail end of that warning and into Reynolds and Iron too eventually.
That's Kent, appreciate it. And just holler, wave at me if you need to draw my attention, because that's really important. You know, I'm zoomed in, focused on this. And then what Kent's trying to say is this isn't our viewing area yet, but that would be near Viburnum, western Reynolds, western Iron, and then southern, southeastern Crawford County shortly. So let's keep an eye on that. We could get some more warnings as that might get extended. I'm going to get an idea of the timing on that. That one is moving at 65 miles per hour. So that would be near Viburnum in about 23 minutes. Folks, these are moving so quickly that they're going to come up on you quicker than you probably anticipate. You know, usually storm motion's 30, 40 miles an hour. Today, we're talking about most of these, not all, but most of these are probably going to be around 60, 65. So that's really quickly into Iron, near Viburnum, and western Reynolds County. If I zoom in a little bit, you'll see Viburnum pop up there. And there's Viburnum right there. There's the tornado warning. So this may get extended. That's Reynolds, Iron, that's Crawford, and that's Washington counties in Missouri. It's kind of the intersection of those areas. Possible tornado warning extended if the storm to the southwest continues to show rotation. That rotation would be right about here, just southwest of Gladden. Okay, so thank you, Kent. Really appreciate that. That's why we have a team, and because I'm going to focus on storms, and we need a team to keep us seeing everything that's happening. I do want to kind of zoom out a little bit and get back to tracking this even a little farther downstream, and I'll slow it down a little bit. Leah, on Max 1, can you type in 55 for me there? It's going to help me with my arrow tracker, change the speed. Thank you. And if I put it at 55, we get into Jefferson County in about 50 minutes. Just to give you an idea, so Gray's Summit, Pacific, you know, we're talking an hour. We're talking a long time where this may not hold its strength. But I think Sullivan, you're more in the immediate threat. Cuba, St. James right now, more in the immediate threat. And we're going to be tracking that more specifically now as I zoom in on that area. But I just kind of want to give folks, as this kind of comes towards St. Louis, the bigger picture idea of when this would arrive. And I don't see anything here, too, on this storm yet. Nothing severe yet. That's Gasconade, and that's near Herman, New Haven. And don't worry about that. I can take care of that. Go ahead, Leah.
Check the debris signature.
Thank you. Okay, on the one that's coming towards Cuba now?
On both of them.
On both, okay. So one of the things we're going to monitor is this debris tracker potential for maybe a tornado on the ground. I think this is a little messy. It's not as tight of an area of low correlation, but what this does is if it's coupled with where the rotation is, and usually it's a little tighter signal, but that would be something that might indicate that debris is actually in the air. That's something Doppler radar can actually see, debris in the air. And so we'll check the one farther south. And the other thing is you're getting really far away from the radar too. So I do not think that this is a tornado debris signature, but it has my eye and I'm watching it. And you couple that with the fact that that storm is rotating and it's right here. Let me move that up so you can see a little better. And that rotation and that debris signature are very closely related, but I don't think it's a classic and obvious slam dunk. And we'll keep an eye on, see what the Weather Service says out of that. And that would be the Springfield Weather Service, although it's coming into the St. Louis Weather Service domain. If you're in Cuba, it's just west of town. If you're in St. James, this is in the clear. St. James, you're in the clear. So there is St. James in the clear. Rosati, you're in the clear now. If you were down in the basement or in your safe shelter, maybe you're watching this on the KMOV weather app, KMOV.com, maybe you turned up the volume on the TV and ran downstairs, you're in the clear in St. James and Rosati. Cuba, you are not, but I do think the rotation looks a little weaker. And I take that back. Once I look at the velocity data, which is the Doppler winds, it still looks pretty strong. Let me show you what that is right there. And it would be just west of you. And as it rides up 44, I'd say you're looking at just a few minutes. You're still going to have to be in that storm shelter for probably another 5 to 7 minutes or so. I mean, timing on that into Cuba is 2 minutes. It's pretty much there. And keep in mind, there can be like a 1 minute delay on these scans too. So it may be right over Cuba right now. So Cuba, in your safe shelter, be downstairs if you can in the basement, lowest level if you don't have a basement, and put as many walls between you and the outside. You want to avoid windows. Let's get an idea of timing on this, headed up towards Sullivan now. And I'm going to stay with these kind of Christmas colors just to help me pinpoint that rotation. About 18, 19 minutes now into Sullivan. And actually, that's at 55 miles per hour. Earlier, we were tracking at 65. So the one thing we'll have to do is kind of adjust the speed if this speeds up. If they reissue that warning too, check what they're saying on speed. The last one said 45, which seemed a little slow, especially compared to some of the other storms that were at 65. There's the tornado warning and the hook right there, just west of Cuba. Again, these are Doppler radar indicated tornadoes, so we don't know if anything's on the ground right now, but that helps save lives. It helps get you in a safe shelter. My hope is that this thing is just going to spin over, it already did St. James, spin over the north side or right over Cuba and not put down a tornado. That's my hope, but we're here letting you know the threat is now. Get into your safe shelter, and you won't be there long. These things are going to pass pretty quickly. Downstream, you can see the one tornado warning expired, but this one continues. And downstream, it would be Sullivan. Let's see, as we zoom in on 44 here and east of Cuba. Leesburg, you definitely are, you're not quite in the tornado warning, Leesburg, but you're awfully close. Hofflands is, Leesburg, you definitely want to keep an eye on this. I'm hoping this misses you to the north and northwest, and then Bourbon would be next after Cuba. And timing on that would be, so that rotation's kind of west side of town or right on Cuba right now. And timing on that would be into Bourbon in about 11 minutes. It might be on the kind of northwest side of town, but it's going to be a really close call. And I'll continue to map that exact rotation. The rotation would be on the south flank of this, and then you'd end up with the hail and potential for damaging winds coming out of the core right here. So the damaging winds would be here, hail would be here, but the rotation is just a little farther south, and that's coming through the west-northwest side of Cuba. Another tornado warning, guys. Looks like something came through here. This is up north. Okay, wow, that's hooking too. Okay, northern Lincoln County, we now have, let me just stop for a second. This is gonna get busy. We're gonna have a lot of warnings coming in. We have a team, we'll stay on top of it. We're gonna draw attention to the strongest storms. And right now, that is a new tornado warning. It's a big one too, a large area. That is northern Lincoln County. The rotation is in northern Lincoln County. Let's zoom in and see exactly where it is. I think it's gonna be north of Troy. The rotation is north of Troy. So Troy, you're not in this tornado warning. There's Troy. Right now, you're in the clear, but farther north, up 61 in northern Lincoln County and very close to the Pike County border, that's where we see it. Eola, right here, the rotation's probably just south of you. Millwood is where it just went over. And this tornado warning, that goes until 5:45, moving east at 70. And storm speeds are going to be pretty fast here. It's going to come up on you quickly. And so Ellsbury, will you do me a favor, Leah, and type in 65 in there? Thank you. Ellsbury, you're talking 11 minutes. So another potential tornado. Meteorologist Kent Earhart with us. Do you have any new information? Okay. Just flag me down. Let me know. I think we're going to get some new information and new warnings coming fast and furious, just like this one. Let's put the track on this too and get you an idea of downstream from the rotation. So I'm not tracking the hail at this point. I'm not tracking where it's going to rain. But what I am tracking, I'm going to have to redo the track because it's moving so fast, is the rotation. So I want to make sure that you know when possibly that rotation, possible tornado get to your neighborhood. So we're in northern Lincoln County. This looks messy, a lot of colors here. But if you're in northern Lincoln County, east of Millwood, you need to be in your safe shelter. It's going to cross 61. This is 61. That's the one that goes down to Troy and then goes up to Bowling Green, which is hidden by the cities there. So this is Pike County up here. This is Lincoln County down here. Ellsbury now in about 12 minutes. Campsville in about 23 minutes. And that would be crossing the Mississippi River and going into Illinois. Hamburg in about 16 minutes. And you see some of the other cities in the path of that rotating cell that potentially could produce a tornado. At this point, too, it is radar indicated. As far as the hail out of this storm, it would be about quarter size, so that's marginal. I think the bigger threat here is the rotation and the threat for a tornado crossing 61. Let's get rid of the red box that represents that warning for you. And I'm going to loop the radar just to get an idea of the trajectory here. Is this moving more northeast or east? And I think that's kind of a little more northeast. So this might just clip Ellsbury or maybe just north side of town. Either way, Ellsbury, there you are. We need you in your safe shelter. There you see that path right there that would eventually cross into, this is Calhoun County, Illinois, and then Greene County. So downstream, what are we talking about time-wise here? This is Ellsbury in about 10 minutes. This is a long ways. This isn't a guarantee it holds holds together and shows rotation this long. But that is Carrollton in Greene County in 67. This is in Illinois now. So this is Calhoun County, Illinois. This is Greene County, Illinois. That's Carrollton. This is 67. And that is where the rotation is right now. Let me switch on the velocity, the Doppler winds. Yeah, that's a strong signature. And it's about to basically cross 61. Okay, let me back out a little bit because we've got 2 tornado warnings going on right now. 3 tornado warnings. We now have one. Nope, it's not quite into our viewing area yet. This one, and that looks a little weaker. Let's hope they haven't extended it yet, so that's good news. If you're in Viburnum, we're still watching this. We mentioned that. So just 2 in our viewing area, the one that's coming up towards Sullivan and the one we just highlighted for you around Millwood, now east of Millwood and moving towards Ellsbury. I'm going to zoom in on the one near Sullivan so we can get an update on where that is. That's a Doppler indicated tornado warning. They both are, all of these are, and still showing rotation. It's now east of Cuba. If you're in Cuba, you're in the clear. Okay, I'm going to say that because first of all, people I think just appreciate it. Second of all, sometimes you have to run to the basement where you don't have a TV. Turn up the volume on the TV and you'll hear me walk you through this. So Cuba, you're in the clear. Sullivan, you are not. Bourbon, you are not. It is headed to Bourbon in a matter of minutes. Again, it is radar indicated at this point. We don't have any confirmation if it's on the ground. And most likely that rotation is just on or north of I-44 on the north side of Leesburg. Let me switch over to the regular Doppler radar. So you see Leesburg here. It's close. You know, if the next scan comes down a little south, that's a really close call. I think it'd be best to be inside, away from windows at the very least, and ready to take shelter. But people who should be in the basement right now or in your tornado shelter are Bourbon, as that rotation is probably right on the north side of 44 there. And I think we're getting another tornado warning too, Leo. Just holler at me if you get something new that's really important. This is Highway H. Right here and 44. I think the rotation, well, there's the update. The rotation is going to cross right around Highway H and 44 in a matter of a couple minutes now. Hofflands, you're just about in the clear. Give it another minute or 2. Leesburg, again, I think this is going to miss you and kind of ride near and north of 44 and right up into Bourbon. You got anything new? Go ahead.
Yeah, this is a new warning.
You're leaving somebody out.
For Crawford County and Washington County until 6 p.m.
Crawford and Washington till 6 p.m. Let's turn this on. That's a new one. Here we go. I told you this is going to get fast and furious. So this one is south of the one I was just tracking for you. Let's zoom out. Make sure you have the big picture. Know what's happening here. We've got 3 tornado warnings in our viewing area and a 4th that we're watching closely. One, northern Lincoln County. Another one headed towards Bourbon now, then Sullivan. Be in your tornado safe shelter. Watching this one, but has not been extended towards Viburnum in western Iron County. And then here's another one that's new, and I really think that rotation's mostly at this point probably in northern Washington County. So let's zoom in and get in on that. I believe this one is going to be radar indicated as well. It is. Not much of a hail threat or wind threat. This is going to be for tornadoes. And we're going to switch over to the Doppler winds on this storm. Not as obvious in this one exactly where that rotation is, but it'll be on the south flank. Richwoods, you're getting rain, but the rotation's going to be back here. So if you're in Richwoods, you're in the tornado warning, and you're going to want to be taking shelter, but the rotation's actually going to be back on the back flank there, the southwest flank. So you'll get rain, you won't be able to see it, don't even try, and then hopefully this rotation that moves over you doesn't produce a tornado, because again, it is radar indicated, but that is in northern Washington County. I'll be tracking that in a second here. I just want to double check on the speed as well. This one northeast at 45, so this one's going to be a little bit slower, and I'll put a cone track on that as it heads to the northeast, 45. Let's go about 50, because sometimes these will be a little faster. That puts it in Bliss in 12 minutes, Fletcher in about 14 minutes, DeSoto in about 24 minutes, and puts it in Hillsborough in about 26 minutes. That means it would be moving from northern Washington County in Missouri into Jefferson County. So this is Jefferson County, there's the border, and you see DeSoto in about 24 minutes, Hillsborough in 26. So if you're in that kind of southern half of Jefferson County, let's be watching this closely, and especially since some of this rotation, if it holds together or even strengthens, actually that's a little faster speed, it would be in about 35 minutes that it could be out around some really populated areas up and down 55. That's Festus, Peevely, Herculaneum, and Barnard. We'll have to watch that. You got about a half hour, maybe 30 to 40 minutes. And again, I haven't seen a really intense signature on this, but indeed there is a tornado warning on that, and it is radar indicated. That is moving, northeast at 45 miles per hour. Okay, let's get back to the one near Sullivan and track that. That's just off to the west-northwest. Before I do, just want to zoom out and see if any new warnings have popped up. Nothing here. So we have, in our viewing area, we have 3 tornado warnings. The one in northern Lincoln County in Troy, you're in the clear out of that. We'll check in Ellsbury in a second. Sullivan, I want to make sure that you're safe and know that you should be in storm shelter now. You're going to get rain, really heavy rain too. Let's get rid of the box and just map this storm out for you. Rotation would be on this southwest flank right over Bourbon. You should already be in your safe shelter, and that would ride up into Sullivan. This is where the heavy rain and the hail would be. The rotation would be on that southwest side and kind of right over Bourbon right now. So what I'm looking at here is you see a little bit of red. It's not real obvious, but a little bit of red. Winds going away from the radar, and then this kind of blue-green are winds going towards the radar. So that rotation is right over Bourbon right now. We had mentioned earlier it was right around Highway H. Now, let's see, it is right around Hickory Street, Walnut Street, Pine, whatever connects. It's going to be Pine that connects with 44 right there. So there's Pine, there's Bourbon, 44, that's the rotation, and it's heading right into St. Cloud, Missouri in a matter of a minute, and then eventually into Sullivan. Timing-wise on Sullivan is probably going to be in a matter of 5-10 minutes or so. This one was moving a little slower. Let's see here. Let's put a track on the cone to the northeast at, they were saying 45, 6 minutes into Sullivan. You see St. Cloud we mentioned, 1 minute. There's Sullivan at 6 minutes, St. Clair, Missouri in about 23 minutes. And basically this thing, I mean, there's the rotation. This thing is kind of riding along 44, and then see how 44 is going to go north. So eventually that rotation is going to cross 44 and actually be south of it. And that's probably when it's going to be near or in Sullivan. West Sullivan is in about 3 minutes right now. Any new information coming in on our chat? We have an instant message chat with emergency managers, National Weather Service, and that helps us if we get reports of damage or anything like that coming through. Anything coming in, Leah?
That I'm seeing right now is quarter-size hail from that storm that's near Sullivan.
Okay.
And looks mainly what we're seeing is just kind of continuations of those severe thunderstorm warnings across the area. In Pike County, that warning's been extended. Trying to read what else we are getting here in the chats. They're starting to come in fast and furious, all the reports.
Yeah, so 3 tornado warnings going right now. Emily, say that again. And one of them is in northern Lincoln County. And that's one we haven't paid attention to in just a couple minutes or so. Let's zoom in on that and see what's going on. Emily, what did you say?
Leah's
Sorry.
got something.
Go ahead, Leah. Go for
This was a new report that just came in a minute ago. A train spotter reports golf ball size hail and rotating wall cloud.
And where is that?
That was in Sullivan.
Sullivan, okay. So we've warned Sullivan, we were just showing you that. I'm gonna stay with this storms because we wanna make sure Ellsbury and anyone else in Lincoln, Pike County know what's coming your way. But just a heads up, there's confirmation now that indeed that storm is rotating. A rotating wall cloud is a lowering from the ground. Can you take Sullivan cam on the BJC Sky Cam? It's out? Oh, okay. And what that is a lowering from the clouds, and typically that is air that's rotating and rushing up into the storm. And not all wall clouds rotate, but this one, the spotter said it was. So that's air rushing up and rotating into the storm, and that would be the beginning of what could be a tornado. But you don't have any confirmation of it being on the ground at this point. But it's just kind of further evidence. And again, that's in Sullivan, not where I'm zoomed in now. Where I'm zoomed in now is northwest of Ellsbury, right here, rotation and potential tornado. Again, radar indicated. It's going to cross Highway 79 here very shortly, and eventually towards Hamburg. Let's get an idea of the speed on this one too. And I want to map that one out. Into Hamburg. This is about 70 miles per hour. So let's get rid of the boxes. And what I'm focusing on here is going to be the rotation, which is northwest of Ellsbury now. So that's good news for the folks in Ellsbury that we were telling you to take shelter. But Hamburg in about 5 minutes or so, and that would be crossing into Illinois. This is Calhoun County, Illinois. That's 79 right there. And that rotation, this is Ellsbury too, is going to move north of Ellsbury. So that for Ellsbury, I would say if you're in your safe shelter, just hang out for another minute or two while this passes, especially if you live on the north side of town. You should be in your shelter. If you're in Ellsbury proper, I think this is going to miss. And then Hamburg in about 5 minutes. This would probably be near Dameron in about just a minute or two. And that rotation would be crossing 79, kind of very near Highway CC as well. You see Highway CC on the map here, if I bring this up, right here. So that's Highway CC and 79, and then there's a rotation potential tornado right about here. And then you see Dameron. That's a small town, but Dameron potential for a tornado. You should still be in your safe shelter. Okay, getting rid of that box. Let's zoom out and see if we've got anything new. Still have 3 tornado warnings. Go ahead. Meteorologist Leah Hill has something new. Go ahead.
Yeah, so that storm that's over Sullivan, they've continued that warning and they've extended it until 6 o'clock. So northeastern Crawford County, northwestern Washington County, and southeastern Franklin County are all included in that warning. And this was also the storm that there was a report of a rotating wall cloud. Exactly.
And some large hail too, right? Golf ball size hail. And I'll explain what she's saying. Thank you for that update. Really appreciate that. So this was the original tornado warning. This is the new one. The rotation's right here. Potential tornadoes pretty much on 44 near West Sullivan, coming into Sullivan. The hail threat probably already hit Sullivan. I'll bet it's this core right here. And that warning does extend into towns like Sinclair. Although if I draw a trajectory on this, and if it follows that trajectory, so here's where the rotation is. If it splits down the middle right there, we probably, as long as it doesn't deviate from that, you would get the rotation missing Sinclair to the south, but then you get some of this hail coming up, especially on the south side of St. Clair, Missouri. Again, we're focused on right around Sullivan, Missouri, where you should still be in your safe shelter right now. There's another tornado warning just to the southeast that we were tracking earlier. That rotation is probably much closer to Richwoods. You should be in your safe shelter right now, especially in the south side of town. That signature not as obvious as this one, but both have rotating storms that could produce tornadoes, and of course potential for some large hail on the Sullivan one as well. The one that's hitting Sullivan right now The speed, they're saying northeast at 40, so let's put a track on that. Let's get rid of the boxes. So sometimes the boxes are informative and helpful, and sometimes they just clutter the screen. So what I'm going to do right now is just highlight for you. Here's the rotation and possible tornado, right, moving into Sullivan. Where is it headed next? As it moves northeast at about 40 miles an hour. This one's slower than some of the other storms. So we mentioned Sullivan right now, and then you see Plum Ford, Parkway, Mount Hope, some of the other cities in the path. As that moves through Franklin County, that would be the southern portion of Franklin County. If you're in Sinclair and Union, most likely this is going to miss you to the south here. Let me get rid of the box. And again, Sinclair is one of those kind of close calls, but you are in the tornado warning technically. There's Sinclair. And here's the rotation right around Sullivan. Union's a little farther to the north. And those are 2 tornado warnings that we have going. All these tornado warnings at this point are radar indicated. We don't have anything confirmed on the ground. This third one up to the north, see if that still has, rotation looks a little weaker. It's north of Ellsbury, right about here. It's right on, this line right here is the Pike County, Missouri, and Lincoln County to the south line, and that rotation's right on the line. So if that helps inform people who live in that area, it's east of 79 right now, and it's coming right at Hamburg in Calhoun County in Illinois. We've got storm mode Silverado on your screen too, and that's headed towards St. Clair, so they're going down 44. Let me also zoom out and get an idea as far as that crew being in a safe spot. Yeah, you're going to be okay on 44 for right now. Let's kind of monitor that though, guys. And the reason I say that is, and let me get rid of the boxes and loop this radar for you. I'm going to highlight the rotation right over Sullivan here, another area of rotation right over Richwoods here, and then the third area of rotation is over Hamburg right here. So 1, 2, 3, and we've got a crew on 44 going this way towards Sullivan. So as long as that crosses, and it is crossing 44 and then stays south of St. Clair, at this point it looks like that's the best trajectory. I think we're going to have you in a safe position, but just be on guard. We've got our crews, they've got radar, and they know to stay out of red boxes. That's my key, stay out of the red boxes. So 3 tornado warnings are all radar indicated at this point. Let's go to the big picture. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. We have first alert storm mode coverage live right now of 3 tornado warnings in the area. This is a storm system we told you about back on Monday that could produce some significant weather, and here we are with the warnings. My hope is that the warnings are radar indicated and they don't touch down. But at this point, we need some folks that I've been highlighting in these 3 spots to take shelter. And that does include Sullivan, by the way, right now. Very shortly, I think it'll be moving out of Sullivan. Hamburg, you need to be taking shelter as well. And after Sullivan, a little downstream, it's more rural, but that's kind of northeastern Crawford, northwestern Washington, and far southern Franklin County. And then if you're in Richwoods, you want to be taking cover, not the strongest signature. That's from that smaller red box you see right there. And that would eventually, if it does strengthen or if it continues, it would move into Jefferson County and potential for that warning to extend. Kent, go ahead.
It's not a warning, but near Troy in Lincoln County, some 3/4 inch size hail, which is approaching severe limits. So you want to be prepared for that.
So that's the storm you're talking about,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So what he's saying is, hey, this storm's intensifying, it's producing hail. It's not quite to the level of severe hail, which is about quarter size or larger, which is an inch in diameter or larger. But he's just pointing this out. And this is exactly why we have the team in place. I can't cover all of this on my own, so big thanks to Kent and Leah for being here, especially Kent, who worked the morning show. Sullivan in the shelter, Hamburg in the shelter, and then Richwoods as well. Again, not the strongest signature moving through Richwoods right now, but still potential, and a tornado warning continues. All are radar indicated at this point. And here's something else for our friends down south in Viburnum and Western Reynolds and Iron. The tornado warning that was here expired. It did not extend, so the rotation has weakened to the point where these are maybe going to be severe thunderstorm warnings, but we don't have them yet in our coverage area, as there's still some storms down to the south. Bigger picture here, real big picture. This is the main show. This line of storms right here. This is it. And this is going to pass through pretty quickly through our area. It's about 5:30 now almost. And I'd say probably by 7 o'clock, that line is going to be just east of St. Louis, maybe finishing up with the Metro East or in the Metro East, and then moving through the rest of our Illinois counties, done with by 9 o'clock. So big picture, main show, watching for rotating storms that can produce tornadoes, damaging winds that could be high end, like 60 to 80 mile an hour, and even some high end hail, like golf ball size. So that's big picture what we're dealing with. Let's get back to the nitty-gritty details of where the strongest storms are, what they're doing right now, and where they're going. We mentioned Sullivan. Let's zoom back on that and see what that rotation looks like. I can see the hook. Just because you have a hook, by the way, in the radar data right here, doesn't mean that you have a tornado. Storms can hook and wrap, and doesn't necessarily mean. You have to look at the Doppler winds. A little bit of a weaker signature there, but still definitely some rotation. And it'd be right around here. So if you're in Sullivan, you're in the clear now. You'll see that Sullivan's technically still in the warning, but you're in the clear. That rotation is now east of you. It's also now south of 44. It's been on this kind of trajectory to the east and a little bit northeast, but it crossed 44, which now goes north up towards Parkway. It's going to miss you in Parkway. And it's crossing 185 right now in that southern part of Franklin County. Lonedell is a town that I think needs to watch for this rotation. I'm going to switch over to the Doppler winds again and try to pinpoint this. It would be right here. And as I zoom in a little bit, you'll see Lonedell pop up. And this one again is moving a little slower. So, Leah, will you help me out? We type in, let's go 50 miles per hour. So what we do is I type in the speed, and then when I draw the arrow, it tells me the estimated time of arrival. Mount Hope in about 10 minutes. It's going to be very near and just south of Plum Ford. And that would be crossing 47. Basically, we're 47 and 30 connect in Franklin County, and there's St. Clair. So St. Clair, you're going to most likely miss this. You're potentially going to get hit with some large hail in St. Clair, Missouri. This is the yellow line's Interstate 44. And then here's Highway 30 to 47. This turns into 47, actually, and then goes north up to Washington. So it's going to be right where 30 and 47 connect, just west of Lonedell near Mount Hope in about 10 minutes. Lonedell, maybe 12 minutes. So that gives you an idea there. Cedar Hill in Jefferson County. Let me get rid of the that arrow. And then track this to Cedar Hill in about 20 minutes. And I'll zoom out and point that out for you. Cedar Hill in Jefferson County. Rotation, not the strongest signature. That's the good news, and it's still radar indicated, but this thing is still rotating and still has a tornado warning on it. And if it's still strong, it's going to be Cedar Hill in about 20 minutes. You also see some cameras on your screen. We have the BJC Sky Cam from Most Sacred Heart Church in Eureka. That's in the top right, and then on the bottom right is I-44 near St. Clair. That's a storm mode Silverado. The reason why we have crews in the field is not to get into the storm. We don't want that. We always tell them stay away from the red boxes, but we do want them near if there's damage, where that damage is, and get the ground truth of really what it is. We all know sometimes you hear of really bad damage, and then we get there and it's not much, and then sometimes it is. And so that's what we do. We're a news organization. We're going to go out and gather the news and tell you what's happening, but we're going to do it in a way that keeps our crews safe. And right now that rotation is down here. They're headed towards St. Clair up here. So they're in a safe spot away from that rotation. Nothing new coming in on chat, guys?
Well, an emergency manager in Troy, Missouri is reporting that they're getting some calls of downed trees, and hail is now up to an inch.
And what?
The hail is up to an inch.
Hail up to an inch. So that storm that Kent was pointing out earlier, and thank you for doing that, it's not severe right now, but the fact that they've got some downed trees, I mean, the trees may have been weakened already, or perhaps it has produced a little burst. We do have a live picture of St. Clair where you see the MoDOT cam on Interstate 44. I see the spray from the heavy rain that's been on the, but hitting the Sullivan area. That's St. Clair though, am I right? St. Clair, that's going to be north of where the rotation is. And so if you're in St. Clair, the rotation is going to miss you to the south. technically, let's see, technically I think St. Clair is, yes, in the tornado warning, but you are in the clear. You even saw some sunshine coming out there. So we're zoomed in on Franklin County. Sullivan's in the clear. You already saw the storm hit there. You can get out of your safe shelter. Parkway to St. Clair, there's St. Clair, it's in the same area. You're north of the storm, and actually the hail is probably just south of you, and then the rotation would be, well, in the southern flank here, in southeastern and southern Franklin County. Again, that's the tornado warning there. The tornado warning for that was hitting Richwoods, and I said it wasn't a real strong signature, has moved into Jefferson County and doesn't even have a severe thunderstorm warning on it. It's what we see right here. So if you're in towns that I had mentioned earlier, like DeSoto, which is right here, it moved north of you, weakened, but there is a new severe thunderstorm warning that just came out. You want to tell me about that, guys?
They're talking about the possibility of hailstones on that one moving to the northeast.
And that's Crawford and Washington.
Correct, right on the border there.
Okay, and let me loop this. You know, that's one of the cells that was coming out of that cluster of cells just outside of our coverage area from right down here, and now here it is. So that's a brand new severe thunderstorm warning. Crawford into Washington, potential for some large hail there. The tornado warning north is now east of Sullivan, so it's north of that newest storm, but it's east of Sullivan as far as that rotation goes. And then notice that if you're in Reynolds County, there's another cell down here. We'll have to monitor that. Let me get a little closer to the St. Louis Metro here and zoom in and show you what's going on, because we haven't really been hit yet with anything too severe in the metro. We did hear about down in Troy, or up in Troy, to the northwest, of maybe some downed trees from emergency manager. Just a report from them, but that came through with heavy rain. That didn't produce a severe thunderstorm warning, but certainly could take down maybe some tree limbs at the very least. And this tornado warning is now into Greene County, really. Let's see if the rotation, and that rotation came out of Lincoln County, just north of Ellsbury, and still looks worthy of that tornado warning. It's radar indicated. I'm kind of going back and forth. Here's where it was a little stronger, right there, north of Ellsbury. This is in northern Lincoln County. That's Pike County. And then you cross the river, you get into Calhoun County and Greene County, Illinois. And as I go forward in time, this just helps me pinpoint exactly where that rotation is. It's going to be right here. That most likely is going to miss Carrollton to the northwest. Let me switch over to the Doppler radar. And that rotation right here is what I'm talking about. So if you're in Whitehall, that's more in a trajectory to get to you. It's radar indicated at this point. And the time, actually, let me get an idea of the speed. We're going to have to switch speeds because some of these are going 60, 65, and some of them are going 45 miles per hour. So I'm reading the National Weather Service update, and they said moving east at 65, a little more northeast is what I'm going to go. And Leah, will you help me type in, why don't we go 60 on that? Thank you so much. Rotation into Whitehall in about 8 minutes, crossing 67. So there's the rotation. It's now east of Campsville. If you're in Campsville, you're in the clear, and the east side of town is where that rotation is. 9 minutes, though, it gets right up to around 67. And Whitehall, Carrollton, this is going to miss you just to the north, up 67. And I'm zoomed in on Greene County now, so Greene County, Illinois. And I don't see anything new out of that one. Let's see how long this one goes until, too. It's going to go until, let's see, 5:45. So you got about another 15 minutes. We'll see if that rotation hangs together and that continues, but that's northern Greene County. Watch as I zoom out a little bit, too, just to give you a bigger picture where that is. This is north of St. Louis. So we have one to the southwest and one to the north. And when I say one, I mean tornado warnings. They're radar indicated. This is the one that's coming towards Whitehall. This is the one that Sullivan, you're in the clear now. It's missing St. Clair to the south. And then we have the severe thunderstorm warning right here in Washington County. We are in extended coverage of News 4 at 5, and we'll continue to keep you posted on these New warnings may just flare up. Things kind of happened really quickly here. I mean, we went from not having any warnings on some of these storms to all of a sudden we had 3 and a 4th just outside of our coverage area that we were keeping an eye on. So things happened rapidly, and I wouldn't rule out all of a sudden things flaring up quickly again. My hope is that as these pass through the metro, we don't get any more warnings, but if we do, this is it. This is game time. It's this line moving through right now, and probably till about 7 o'clock in St. Louis, and I think from the Metro East to our Illinois counties, probably around 7 to 9 is your time. And then by 9 o'clock, these things are gone, and maybe even by 8 o'clock. New information coming in. We got meteorologist Kent Earhart. Go
I
ahead.
just want to point out that storm that you've been tracking along 44, when it moved through the Sullivan area, it's still a tornado warning officially, but they didn't, as you know, you mentioned that these are all radar indicated warnings, but they did pick up some quarter-size hail, which is damaging hail. Generally, you look at 1-inch hail and consider that to be damaging hail. So it's still producing large hail, and any of these storms that are warned for tornadoes, even if we don't have a tornado on the ground, you've got damaging winds, you've got heavy downpours, and the potential for more of this very large hail that can cause some serious damage.
And I think if you're in Jefferson County, you want to be watching this one closely too, and eventually into maybe even southern parts of St. Louis County. And the reason I say that, I'm going to slow down the loop here. These things are moving so fast, a slower radar loop helps me get an idea of the trajectory here. But that rotation, there's still rotation on this. This is southeastern Franklin County now, and this that I'm about to draw, this line, is the county line going into Jefferson County. So we got to see if that tornado warning gets extended into Jefferson County. If it does, that trajectory up to the northeast kind of takes it on a path to near and just south of High Ridge. Let me zoom in a little bit more. Some of the other cities potentially in the path would be Cedar Hill. So it's in Lonedell right now. Still have rotation. If you're in Lonedell, you should be in your tornado shelter. It's radar indicated, so we don't know if this is on the ground at this point. But that's the best thing to do, because radar gives you an idea that it could be on the ground, or sometimes it gives you the heads up that this thing's rotating and then boom, it is on the ground. You're already in your shelter. So it really, Doppler radar really helps save lives in that regard. And I still do see a signature probably just on the south side of Lonedell, and right about here. So this is going to come right across south and east side of Lonedell, and then eventually towards Cedar Hill. That would be in a matter of minutes. This one, if we put a trajectory on this to the northeast with the cone here, we're going to move it about, I'm going to go at about 50 miles an hour in this, and we've got it into Cedar Hill in about 13 minutes. Scottsdale, Antonia, and Seckman in about 29 minutes. So that would be about a half hour right there. And then this is 55 as it goes through that kind of northern part of Jefferson County. Festus would be south of that trajectory, by the way, but Arnold would be in it. So you're thinking 30, 35 minutes in Arnold. Let's definitely keep an eye on this, and let's hope that that rotation weakens and we don't have a tornado warning on it anymore. But at this point we do, and there it is. And that rotation's on that south side right there. And that's what I was tracking, Cedar Hill, and eventually you see Arnold, probably about 30, 35 minutes. At this point, it is 2 tornado warnings in our coverage area. Yeah, please, go ahead.
Let's talk about the Greene County tornado warning, which appears to be pretty weak, but they're saying brief areas of rotation continue to pop up.
Yeah.
And while it's nothing particularly strong, it's the type of storm that can spin up very quickly. So they're going to leave the warning up for now as they reevaluate what they do once this warning expires. Because, again, this is one that's kind of borderline, but could spin up very rapidly.
So what they're saying is, hey, we want to be proactive and make sure that you're staying in your shelter if you're in Whitehall. And you know what? I'll be honest, if you're in Carrollton, let's watch this too. I'm actually noticing 2 areas of rotation, and they're not real strong, and that's what the Weather Service is saying. It's not real strong, but we're going to keep the warning going because we're noticing this, and they could just flare up and produce a tornado. So here's one right here. See that little hook? That's coming right for Whitehall. That's the original one we were tracking. And then there's the second one. It's not real strong at all, but I think if you're in Carrollton, especially north of town, up 67, you want to be watching that closely. So, you know, this is the original, and this is the reason why there's a tornado warning, and it's coming at Whitehall in a matter of minutes now. But the second area of rotation is going to be be very near Carrollton in a matter of a minute or so. And both those storms are going to cross 67 and move into kind of eastern Greene County. As I zoom out, just want to give you an idea location-wise. If you're in St. Louis, I'm talking about a storm that's well to the north, that's not coming in. The storm that hit Troy, it may have produced some tree damage, wasn't severe, it still isn't right now, and if anything, it doesn't look like it's going to get a severe thunderstorm warning yet. It would have to intensify more. So this is the 2 areas of rotation. This is just heavy rain, some thunder, and then we've got some more rain coming into St. Louis that really doesn't look too bad until you go a little farther south. What I mean by that is this stuff from Arnold right now and coming into Fenton and coming into eventually Kirkwood, just rain. Go a little farther south, see that little hook right there? That's where the rotation is, and that's where the threat for the tornado is. And when I turn on the tornado warnings, you'll see it's in that corner of southeastern Franklin County. So here's St. Louis. This is south of 44. And we have the Skycam out at Most Sacred Heart Church in Eureka, kind of looking south towards that storm. What's interesting when you look at the camera, too, is you see some sunshine on the right, and you see the really dark clouds on the left, and it's the sunshine that has helped fuel some of these storms today, as temperatures are even in the upper 70s. So there's still a threat that these storms could flare up, and even though we just have down to the southwest these 2 warnings, one is a tornado warning in red and the other is severe thunderstorm warning in yellow, you could see new storms just boom, flare up. And so we're going to really stay on top of this. That's why we have this extended coverage here on News 4 at 5 o'clock. Here we are now at 5:45 almost, and we're going to continue with the coverage because these storms can flare up in intensity on top of the fact that we have 2 tornado warnings as well. Are we getting any new information on that storm down in, because I'm wondering if the storm that's in southeastern Franklin, if they're going to extend that into Jefferson County?
They haven't talked about that. They've talked about allowing the Greene County tour to expire and not doing anything downstream from that. But that one still has a history of some large hail. You might notice also down in Reynolds County, there's another warning that butts right up to the county border there, and that's some pretty heavy rain.
Yes.
And potentially some hail. If you're in the path of that one, you may want to think about getting the car under cover or taking precautions there. But there's no warning in Reynolds, as you can see.
The south flank looks like it may start to rotate right now. This is the storm he's talking about. There's no warning yet. But if I just look at the south flank, you can see there's a little bit of rotation there. So again, another storm to watch. I just noticed it too. It looks like this one has a little bit of a hook. Again, just because there's a hook doesn't mean there's a tornado, but it does draw my eye to where a storm may be rotating. And then if it rotates strongly enough, sometimes you can get a tornado warning. We would try to keep you ahead of the storm with that. So that was a storm that Kent was talking about moving into Reynolds County. We'll monitor that. Here's a severe thunderstorm warning. I just saw a little bit of a hook on the back side of it. And so what I'll do is I'll just keep checking the Doppler winds to see if there's anything jumping out. There isn't. That's good news. So sometimes these things can just hook a little, and it doesn't mean that it's producing a tornado or even rotating strongly at this point. There is still rotation here in that southeastern part of Franklin County, and it is weaker. It's broader, really, is what it is, and it's just kind of southwest of Cedar Hill. So if there's a tornado, it would be right about here. The fact that they have not issued another tornado warning into Jefferson County is encouraging. We've got some new information from meteorologist Leah Hill. Go.
Yes, you were just saying that they haven't reissued that warning. I was just reading the chat that we have with the National Weather Service, and they are allowing that warning to expire for the storm in southeast Franklin County.
Good. So that is, and that's great news for Cedar Hill. There might be some people in Cedar Hill that were in your shelter. You're still going to get hit by a storm. We're still going to monitor this. If it flares up in intensity, we see rotation, we'll be on it. If you're really super nervous, just stay in your shelter until this storm passes. But the rotation looked really weaker on that side of the storm that's coming at Cedar Hill. Even the Scottsdale area, and that's why this red box does not extend out of Franklin County and here into, this would be Jefferson County. We were talking earlier about Arnold. Well, that's that weak rotation. So Arnold in about 20-25 minutes, we will monitor it. We'll let you know if we see anything. All this rain that's getting into Eureka and up into Crestwood, that's all just rain. Nothing severe out of that. We'll keep an eye on that. There's weak rotation, but it looks like they're just going to let that tornado warning expire. But right here is the area I want to keep an eye on. We have Sullivan on 44. sun is out now. Sullivan in the clear. There still may be some rain, but as far as the severe threat, that's moved east of you. And then we have in Arnold right now, and we mentioned that we're watching this storm that had a tornado warning on it. It's the one that came through Sullivan and Bourbon, and this is the one we were tracking. It's the rotation kind of started all the way around Raleigh, and here it is with weak rotation. So it may flare up, we'll watch it, but no tornado warning on it. And that would be headed towards Arnold. So if you're in Arnold, we have crews there, we're watching it for you. And if we see anything intensify or flare up, we're on it. Let's check that storm up in Greene County. Kent was informing us about how there's multiple areas of rotation, but they're rather weak. And that is why the tornado warning has expired now. I still see around Whitehall rotation. Let me check the Doppler winds. You know, that's worthy of, at least if you're in Whitehall and in your shelter, hang out for another minute or two. I'm watching this right here. It's really on the northeast side of town. And it, right there, hooks down into Whitehall. You got something new over there? Sorry. Nope. Sorry, I've got, if anything comes in new, I want to know about it immediately. So that's why we have the team here. So this is crossing 67 right around Whitehall, moving to the northeast. This is northern Greene County, and there's definitely some rotation there. It's just weaker. The second area of rotation, if you remember, I was telling you that in Carrollton, that is now northeast of Carrollton. There's that area, much weaker too. And we'll continue to monitor both of those. But at this point, no tornado warning. I still think if you're in Whitehall, just give it another minute if you're already down in the basement in Root House. If you're in Root House, I think I would stay in your shelter as well. There's no tornado warning on that now, but I mean, to me, that looks like something you want to be inside, away from windows, and at the very least. Let me switch over to the Doppler winds right here. And Root House is right about there too. If I zoom in, this is northern Greene County, almost out of our coverage area, but there's Root House. So in Illinois, northern Greene County, hang out if you're already in your shelter. No tornado warning at this point, but I do see some rotation that has me at least a little bit concerned and would rather have you safe than sorry. And we'll monitor that. That moves off to the northeast. If we loop this a little bit and get an idea of the trajectory, that's that rotation right there. Kind of came out of Calhoun County, and that will eventually leave our coverage area very shortly. So back to the radar and the warnings. I believe at this point we have no tornado warnings. This is really encouraging. It doesn't mean we can't get another one. Things can really intensify and flare up quickly. Some strong winds near Old Monroe, but not rotating. That's good news too. And we have that severe thunderstorm warning that is a little farther south in Washington County. That's going to be right here. Not seeing any significant rotation on that too. So
Down to
Reynolds.
No warning down there.
And that was the one we were saying, hey, let's on the backside, just keep an eye on it. Doesn't look like that rotation is real significant at this point, but definitely something to watch, probably around the bunker area right now. And then that would move up to the northeast. And what we're trying to key in on here is where storms are rotating. I mean, that's why we're here with the extended coverage of News 4 at 5 o'clock, because it was the tornado warnings that prompted that, and the fact that we're in an environment that's conducive to it. Don't forget, we are in a tornado watch until 8 o'clock, and it's what they call a PDS tornado watch, so that's particularly dangerous situation. That language comes from the Storm Prediction Center. They're based out of Norman, Oklahoma. They're the ones that issue these, and they basically say, hey, the environment's ripe for not just tornadoes, but potentially for some higher end tornadoes like EF2 or higher for 60 to 80 mile per hour winds. And we wanted to let you know those are fast moving storms, and it kind of limits how much time you have to react to them. Some of these have been moving a little slower, around 40, 45, but many of them have been around 60 to 65 miles per hour. And so when you have this environment that's conducive to forming tornadoes, we've already had 3 tornado warnings in the area. We want to stay on and kind of monitor this as we continue to possibly see new warnings pop up. Kent, can you handle checking the radar a little bit for me? Get
Sure.
an update. And I'm going to check in and get a glass of water.
Yeah, it's nice to see things settling down a little bit. We still have the potential that we could see some more hail out of some of these storms, but the tornado threat certainly seems to have settled down quite a bit, which is good news, and we can see that there is rain moving into the metro area. We want to stay with this for now just because there is that opportunity for these storms to kind of flare up pretty quickly, as you know, and we've been tracking this for several hours now. And I don't want to sound like a self-promoter, but if you were with us over the past couple of days and you looked at the super predictor and we talked about this time period that we're in right now, it did a very good job of painting a picture very similar to what you're seeing now. The timing's changed a little bit. We can't tell you where these individual cells are going to pop up, but I'm very pleased with the output from the super predictor that we've had for over the past few days with this particular system, because it really did do a good job with it. And again, the only thing that's really happening right now is that warning down around Crawford and Washington County, I guess it is now. That's the only storm that we're warned on, and there's nothing particularly heavy about it that we've had any reports of, other than lightning and heavy rain and the potential for perhaps some large hail. But as far as a tornado threat, doesn't appear that's going to be the case. You can see in South County now, you're getting heavy rain around the Kirkwood area up into Webster Groves, down into Sunset Hills, South City, picking up some light rain here in St. Louis. And we've been keeping an eye on those BJC sky cams as well, give us a good picture of what's happening around the area, but nothing showing up that would indicate to us that there was any damage from any of these storms. But you can see some of the heavier rain now around the Carrollton area and moving across 67 there. And a lot of folks travel that route this time of day. So that's, if nothing else, the heavy rain, maybe some brief flooding along the roadway there just from the heavy rain. But if there is good news in this, is that the storms are traveling very quickly, and we never did really concern ourselves with any kind of a flooding threat with any of this, because we knew that these storms would be traveling very quickly. And again, the storm that's moving into Reynolds and now into parts of Iron County, southern parts of Washington County, very heavy rain north of Lesterville. Perhaps some small hail, but nothing to be warned about, just that heavy rain and lightning in the area. And of course, we don't talk much about lightning in these warnings, but that's always a threat. People die from lightning strikes, and lightning can cause damage, so we want to remain aware of that.
Thank you, Kent. Got some water, got new batteries.
Your mic's not on, I don't think. There you go.
There we go. Got new batteries in the mic, got water, we're refreshed, we're good. We continue with a severe thunderstorm warning south, but it looks like that's going to be allowed to expire because the storm's starting to race out of it. And the one to the north is for those areas that were around Whitehall and north of Carrollton, where there was some rotation. No new tornado warnings on those either. So that's good news. Let me zoom in and show you what's going on. We do have a strong storm, but not severe. This is the one that had on the southern flank around Sullivan had a tornado warning. So let's still keep an eye on that. That's also the one that had that weak rotation near Cedar Hill right about when the tornado warning was expired. So that's the one moving towards Arnold. And then, of course, Arnold has rain coming in right now. So these two are going to kind of collide and merge. And hopefully this actually helps steal some of the energy from this so that this doesn't spin up and rotate. So this, at this point, is just rain. This is rain, maybe some small hail, but no extension of the severe thunderstorm warning here. So Jefferson County, you're dealing with some heavy rain, and it looked like storms that were rotating were all coming towards you, but now things have calmed down enough that it's heavy rain, thunderstorms, strong storms, but nothing severe at this point. That's the good news. Same thing with St. Louis County, especially southwestern St. Louis County, that's getting clipped by not even really some of this heavy rain. It's not all that heavy, but it's still showers riding up 44. Back off to the west, some of these can still intensify. It's only 5:54, and I think through about 7 o'clock, we'll have to watch to see if anything off to the west can flare up in intensity, but I'm just not seeing it. I think right now the main action, the main threat for severe weather is probably going to be what we see here, and I expect that to pass through about 7. Go ahead, Ken.
Those storms in Iron County near Bixby have produced some small hail, so they are producing hail. That doesn't mean it's damaging hail necessarily, but it has the potential to continue to increase in size, so we'll keep an eye on that one.
Absolutely. And I appreciate that. He's just reminding us, and he's going to keep an eye on all these storms that maybe we're not focusing on and let us know that, hey, this could flare up in intensity. There it is out of Reynolds and coming into Iron. And I've zoomed in on that on my iPad here, just kind of looking. I don't see any areas of rotation. I see some really heavy rain coming over Potosi right now in Washington County. So that's the good news there. The storms right now aren't rotating or producing any severe weather, but they were earlier up here in Greene County. So I want to check in and see if in Whitehall what that looks like, if it's moved on or not. And it has. So if you were in Whitehall and we told you, hey, hang out for a little bit, I'm going to slow down the loop so you can see it. This thing's moving so fast. It's right about there. That's that rotation I was telling you, like, hey, if you're in Root House and Whitehall, hang out. You're in the clear. It's to the east. Again, no tornado warning on this. Just a little weak rotation right on the south flank of that cell. The other thing is it's ingesting all this cooler air from the south. So you get all this rain that hits. You know how it hits, rain hits, and then all of a sudden the atmosphere cools down, sometimes 10, 15 degrees. So all that cool air is coming out of this storm and getting ingested into that one. It's probably helping to weaken that quite a bit. But no tornado warning on that one. So
Do we have any severe anymore either?
did we just lose that one?
Yep, we're clear of warnings at the moment.
Great, clear of warnings. We're going to continue up until 6 o'clock, and we're going to do kind of a recap of what's happening, timeline here, and then we'll get to News 4 at 6 o'clock. So that's going to be coming up at 6. We'll start off with weather, and then we'll get over to our news anchors and see, too, if we have any kind of reports of significant damage, which so far, guys, I mean, so far you haven't heard anything, right? So, I mean, we tracked a rotating storm from Raleigh to Sullivan to Bourbon, and then it kind of really fell apart very near Cedar Hill in Jefferson County. So we tracked this rotating storm that whole way, and we haven't heard of any reports of damage. That is great news. So just because we're in a risk for higher end tornadoes, damaging wind, and hail doesn't mean it's going to happen, but it does mean you need to be prepared. And it does mean at times some of us may need to take shelter. And certainly the folks that from around St. James to Sullivan to Bourbon did the right thing, took shelter, but I'm glad that that was rotating up above the ground and not touching the ground.
Steve, they talked about the winds behind the front are still pretty strong as the front pushes through. And St. Charles just reported some 55 knot wind gusts and 51 knots around Columbia, Missouri. So behind the front, very strong winds, not of severe caliber, but certainly strong enough to blow some things around.
All right, this is News 4 at 6 o'clock. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. We've been doing first alert storm mode coverage for you as we've had at one time 3 tornado warnings. They were all radar indicated, and we'll continue to track what's happening now and show you those strongest storms that's coming up now on News 4 at 6.
Live from the KMOV Broadcast Center, News 4 is in storm mode.
So we mentioned those 3 tornado warnings, they're gone. Severe thunderstorm warnings, there's 1 to the north in Greene County, but it's really exited the county. So now we don't have any storms that have warnings on them right now. We do have storms. This is going to be the main show here, this line of storms that is moving through right now. But the fact that they've weakened enough and not showing any real strong signs of rotation is just really good news, because we're in such an environment where it could develop tornadoes and even high-end strong winds. That's why there is a tornado watch. It goes until 8 o'clock, although I do think that line is mainly going to be east of St. Louis by about 7 and 7 to 9, moving through some of our Illinois counties that will still continue to track it. We always continue as it crosses the river into Illinois. But that PDS tornado watch means particularly dangerous situation. That comes from the Storm Prediction Center. It's their way of getting your attention to say, hey, this is a higher end tornado watch, meaning a higher end risk. And that risk includes the threat for damaging winds, higher end type tornadoes, and large hail. Specifically EF2 or higher tornadoes. Those are typically the tornadoes that can take the roof off of a house or at least partial roof damage. And then 60 to 80 mile per hour winds and golf ball size hail. We've seen a lot of hail. We've had rotating storms, but they haven't touched down to produce a tornado. And they're fast moving and give you less time to react. So we wanted to make sure that we're on the air, giving you the alerts you need so that you can be safe and prepared. By the way, I mentioned that this storm that we were tracking from around Raleigh to Sullivan and beyond was rotating but didn't produce a tornado. If you're wondering how that happens, these storms up above are rotating. The radar hits the storm above the ground. It can't go along the ground. It'll hit telephone poles, trees, cars, houses. So the energy from the radar needs to be up above the ground so that it can actually get to the storm without bouncing into buildings. So that means when we have a radar indicated tornado, we're actually noticing a spin above the ground, and we don't know if it's on the ground. And we're always honest and transparent with you that this is a tornado that is radar indicated and not seen on the ground yet. So we'll always convey that information to you. But that's how we ended up with a rotating storm. We call them a supercell. A rotating storm for a pretty great distance there too, but thankfully didn't touch down, didn't produce a tornado. And I say thankfully because if you haven't heard, there's been some devastating destruction from a tornado in Little Rock today. They shared an environment like us that was ripe that could produce some of these higher end tornadoes. And so at this point, at least, I'm very happy to say that from Raleigh to there didn't produce a tornado like unfortunately they had out around Little Rock. However, some of these storms can continue to flare up and start to rotate, and we're going to be here watching it as it does. We do have rain, heavy rain and thunder moving into St. Louis. Let me just pop on the Doppler winds. Yeah, I don't see anything real obvious to keep an eye on here. Southern flank here, we'll watch that. I don't see anything real strong moving into Arnold, but that's what we're going to be doing from the First Alert Weather Center, watching this really closely as it does move through. I do expect that by, about 7 o'clock or so, that line is going to be east of St. Louis. And the other thing I want to double check in is what Kent just said. Check that out, Kent. 54-mile-an-hour gust in St. Louis, 52 in St. Charles. This is going to be a little difficult to determine at this point if that was from a storm or non-thunderstorm gusts, but just know that we do have some non-thunderstorm gusts. So we have a wind advisory, and that's going to go through Saturday morning. So even tonight, winds are going to be howling. Non-storm gusts at 40 to 55 that can take down large tree limbs and even cause isolated power outages. For now, no severe thunderstorms in the area. We're still under a tornado watch until 8 o'clock. And boy, we're going to be watching the radar like a hawk. If anything develops, any new warnings, you will have it. In the meantime, let's hand it over to our anchors and see what's new in the newsroom.
All right, Steve, thank you. In response to these storms, Missouri Governor Mike Parson is activating the state's emergency operations plan and the National Guard.
Parson released this statement just a few moments